I'll admit, when I first saw the trailer for Super Mario Party, I was fairly underwhelmed. The last two Mario Party games on home consoles were completely awful, opting for the now infamous car mechanic instead of the traditional board that every other game has had. So coming into this, my expectations were low. From the first trailer, there was no emphasis at all on the boards in Super Mario Party, and that was worrying. It seemed like a minigame marathon only, which would explain the new naming scheme. I am happy to report that the newest entry in the Mario Party series is far greater than the two that came before it, but it is clear that there are certain aspects the developers didn't want to get rid of from the previous entries. Starting off with the initial inspections, the graphics. This is the most polished Mario Party game ever. The graphics aren't technically worlds apart from the Wii U's Mario Party 10, aside from a resolution bump. It's more in the small details where this game is elevated to the top of the podium. The game just looks nice, warm and inviting, like any game in the Mario series should be, and it's all in the texturing. One minigame involves flipping a cube of meat on a pan, and the textures on the meat and the completely over-the-top detail in the background kitchen are just really lovely touches that really do matter. There is a bit of variance from minigame to minigame though. Some, like the kitchen game, honestly look better than Mario Odyssey. Other minigames look noticeably uglier though, which definitely stands out from the otherwise stellar presentation. This brings me on to the UI, which follows the clean, minimalistic style from Odyssey. Whilst I really disliked it in Odyssey, I found it to work very well in this game, and really makes the game seem slicker and more appealing. As far as animations go, they are hilarious. There are some great details too, such as unique character conversations, where different characters will react to different situations. And let's take a moment to look at Waluigi. Now for the sound. It doesn't really get much better than this. Every Mario game nails it in the audio department, from the upbeat and extremely catchy remixes in the background to the bizarre and familiar Shy Guy noise. The game is lovingly crafted, and the sounds are a perfect complement to the visuals. Before going straight into the modes that the game has to offer, it's worth mentioning how these modes are presented. After you've first booted up the game and chosen your character, you are presented with a hub where you can walk your characters around and access the different modes manually. This is a cute but ultimately useless frill, thankfully circumvented by the press of a button that brings up a traditional menu screen. Speaking of characters, this time there is much more of a theme going on, with the roster splitting up into two categories, essentially being Bowser's minions and Mario's friends. Apparently Mario and Waluigi are Mario's friends now. Let's let that slide. Mario's friends are the usual bunch. It's with Bowser's minions where things get a little obscure, featuring some brilliantly strange picks, such as Monty Mole. One thing I love about Mario's spin-off games are the odd character choices, and this game is no different. One noticeable absence from the game's roster that was present in the last game is everyone's favourite character, Spike. Don't worry though, Spike fans, he's in this game. A lot. Another nice wrinkle to the characters is custom dice. Every character has a unique die you can opt to choose, which adds a surprising amount of much needed depth to the game, and makes choosing a character more than just aesthetic. More on that in a minute. The first mode that people will surely play is Mario Party mode, and you know what to expect here. There are 3 boards to choose from, with one unlockable 4th board, and each of them sport their own unique gimmicks. You move around the board in a relatively linear fashion, with diversions along the way, collecting coins and items on the way and playing a minigame after every round, all in the aim to collect stars. The winner is to play at the end of the game with the most stars, with tiebreaks being decided by the player with the most coins. Each of the boards are clean, tight maps and are all fairly enjoyable. But that's about it. It is now that my previous worries from the initial reveal trailer start to be confirmed. These boards are tiny, and whilst the dice blocks have been adjusted to compensate, you absolutely do feel cramped most of the time playing through this mode. And whilst the maps do have unique elements to each of them, these are far less pronounced compared to other Mario Party's far more distinctive boards. But for me, the most enjoyable aspect of the board is the tactics that come from custom dice. This element alone brings a lot to the table. As an example, some characters may have a dice that lean towards specific numbers, such as Daisy's dice block contains the numbers 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4. Her dice ensures that you always move a fairly average number of spaces, which is less risky than the standard dice. There may also be a specific tile you might want to move on that is 3 dice blocks away, so you have an advantage by using Daisy's unique dice, which will massively increase the odds of you landing on that square. Alternatively, you have Dry Bones' dice, which is a risk-taking roll. It's split into 3 1s and 3 6s. This means that if you specifically need a 6 or specifically need a 1, this dice will give you much higher odds of getting it. These unique dice gain another layer of strategy in the form of ally spaces, which grant you another character to move around with you, including their unique dice, which expands your options. It's a shame then that all of this strategy is essentially thwarted by an overabundance of luck and a terrible economy. The game will tell you that coins are somewhat of a sought after commodity. After all, you need 10 of them to be eligible to buy a star. However, most of the time, you won't even bother looking at your coin total because you'll be so rich. Then, conversely, winning a minigame usually dishes out a measly number of coins, meaning losing a minigame is barely any setback at all. Even in a situation where you have won every minigame and landed on the most coin-giving tiles the whole game, not only will you struggle to find a way to spend what you have, you'll potentially be no closer to winning than someone who is a complete beginner. This is because the game doles out game-changing items on a regular basis, and usually it's due to complete luck and no element of strategy at all. Don't get me wrong, strategy really does exist on the board, but you might just find yourself losing despite playing the best possible game you could have hoped for. But now onto the minigames, which is a far more positive note to talk about. The actual games themselves are excellent, top quality and hilariously named. There are very few duffers in the mix, and a lot of the games actually offer a surprisingly decent challenge. I found a lot of the cleverer minigames were the less action orientated ones, and they offered a unique experience that not many other games offer. The biggest surprise from these minigames is how great the motion controls are implemented. The Wii made me slowly hate motion controls in games, but the Switch has really made me appreciate them again. The combination of HD rumble and precise motion tracking that actually works makes the games have a real tactility to them that vastly increased my enjoyment from them. Even the simpler minigames were made much more fun with this sense of presence the rumble gives. So what about the other modes the game has to offer? Well, surprisingly, all of them are excellent, but also undercooked. There is now a new rhythm mode in the game called Soundstage. What initially came across as a completely forgettable mode became the most enjoyable part of the entire game. I am not exaggerating when I say this mode alone makes me want a fully fledged Mario themed rhythm game. There are 3 difficulty levels: normal, remix and hard. Every minigame is not only very challenging to get 100% perfect on, but also extremely fun and far more competitive than the other minigames in other modes. The main issue with this mode is that it is clearly an afterthought designed to make the game meatier, which makes the inclusion of the mode very confusing. I am very glad it is here, and I will play each of the difficulty levels every time I boot up Super Mario Party with a bunch of friends, but it is such a small mode. The fact that it's presented as a whole other mode alongside Mario Party is a strange decision. The same can be said for River Survival. This mode is a 4-player co-op mode, where you board a boat reminiscent of the car from Mario Party 9 and 10. Each player takes an oar, and you must get to the end of the branching river system without the timer in the top left reaching 0. To extend the timer, you must complete River Survival exclusive minigames and work together as a team. The mode is pretty interesting, and the branching paths you can take to reach the sea definitely would add replayability if it wasn't for the small selection of minigames. It is very likely that you will play all of the minigames this mode has to offer in a single completion of the mode. After that, there is only a very small incentive to return, except for the reward of finding every single exit. I'm going to quickly use this as an excuse to mention the high-fiving aspect in Super Mario Party. Every team game, and sometimes at other occasions, you'll be prompted to lift the Joy-Con into the air and high-five your allies. You get a small coin bonus for doing this. This is extremely cute and actually, in a completely silly way, fun. River Survival Mode, the mode where you'll be working as a team the most, employ the high-fives a little too many times, however. This is the culmination of every high-five in a single round of River Survival. Please enjoy. Another mode, Partner Party, is a variant on the traditional board game mode that lets you partner up to make two competing teams. It is a very conscious choice to cover this mode after the last two I just talked about. It is barely talked about by Nintendo, but may just be a better board game mode than the standard Mario Party mode that takes centre stage. In this mode, the boards change shape and open up into a grid format, where you can free walk in multiple directions, walking as many blocks as your dice roll will allow. This mode is reminiscent of Mario Party Star Rush on 3DS, and whilst that game was not very well received by some, I found this mode far more enjoyable than the standard Mario Party mode. Most of the issues from party mode still exist. Luck usually prevails a bit more than it should, and the economy isn't great. Having said that, I found the economy to be a bit stingier in this mode, and it is very easy to steal coins from rivals. Just jump on their heads as you pass them. The custom dice block gets even better in this mode too. If you're playing with a human player, you can discuss the best combination of dice blocks you should use to help each other out. Allies still work in this mode, except this time you have more control over what allies you get as opposed to the random slot machine in party mode. The other modes can be quickly summarised. There is your standard minigame collection that allows for different ways of playing through the minigames. No frills. This is an essential feature that I am glad to see back, but it is of course nothing particularly noteworthy. There is an online mode, but it is so poor that you may as well pretend it isn't there. Then there are the weird minigames that allow for two switches to be connected together to play one game. I didn't get the opportunity to play these games with two switches, but this set of games seems to be the most confusing addition to the game, seeming to be no more than a few experimental minigames thrown in to gauge a reaction for a future game. All of these modes are a bit exhausting, aren't they? This game leaves me feeling unsure on how to conclude on it. Is it a good game? Yes. There is polish, clearly apparent, and the game is well thought out. Is it a fun game? Yes. Very much so. I found myself smiling a lot, and with the right people, this game can be elevated above other games in your Switch library, as it is bound to appeal to more people you might want to have join you. There's a lot of good things going on here, but the game is also mired by odd decisions and is frustratingly close to being good in so many areas, but has shortcomings that prevent it from being any more than just a good game.